Welcome everyone to another video, and today, you guessed it, we're going over Cortex bots, and we're just gonna do a kind of in-depth breakdown and take a look at them. So I am actually genuinely curious if the website was updated for the update they had on the Pawn and Grunt. We see here the metal cost of the Grunt 36, very low and very spammable unit, and the DPS is 75, which is pretty decent actually. Now, just for those who might not be aware, laser weapons are 75 at the very closest weapon range, and then they have a 50% damage fall off after they get to their longest range. So at 230 range, this Grunt will have half as much DPS, and that goes for all laser weapons. And line of sight's pretty good, so it's 500 line of sight, which makes the Grunt similar to a general scouting unit such as the Tick or the Rover. So yeah, people use them in that way all the time. And Cortex doesn't really have a scouting unit like the Armada bots do, which you can check that over here. We got the Tick, which is the Armada scouting unit, which is a little bit cheaper, definitely a lot less DPS, but it has a 600 line of sight, and it's a much faster 132. So I wanted to check at the Pawn, which has a speed of 87. What does it say, this one? Yep, they updated it on the website. So speed of the Grunt is 81, speed of the Pawn is 87, which means the Pawn now has a advantage when going up against the Grunt. So just keep that in mind when you're skirmishing with them. You're gonna be at a slight disadvantage now, and the Pawn does have a higher DPS than you, so your micro's not going to be quite as effective. But I think that was a well-deserved change that will actually benefit the whole game and how it's played, especially in the 1v1s. I think it was good to see the Pawn get a little bit of a buff there. All right, the Grunt is a basic sorry, the Grunt is a basic infantry bot that's cheap to build and can quickly devastate poorly defended expansions, artillery units, and even isolated commanders. It also fills a scouting role, gathering intel while easily killing enemy scouts like the Tick. Build up a small force to rush an undefended commander. It is armed with 2 light lasers and have slightly greater range than the Pawn's guns, so you can easily take them out by killing them. Move back and let the Pawns come to you, or by kiting them, sorry. Move back and let the Pawns come to you. Now, that's something that is a little bit untrue at this point. I think the Pawn has a slight advantage on the Grunt now. But yeah, ultimately, if you are being charged by Pawns, you're gonna want to try to keep your weapon range to your advantage, because you do have a longer range, but it's not going to be as efficient at kiting as it used to be. So this whole thing might need a change on the website. Not really sure. We gotta see how it plays out in the 1v1s at higher level gameplay to really know how to appropriately word this. Small force can rush an undefended commander. I agree with that. It's pretty hard to get a commander though with Grunts and Pawns, just because of the limited range of the weapons, and unless the commander's running out of energy, he can usually de-gun them off of him pretty easily. So I don't know. I would prefer, honestly, that you use your Grunts to try to harass the economy, the expansion, better more than going after a commander, because I think you'll get a little bit better value with it. But you know, I've gotten commander kills with Grunts. It's just a little bit tougher, whereas with like vehicles or centurions and plasma bots, they have a longer range, so you can usually outmaneuver a commander and outrange the commander and pop him. Excuse me while I grab a little cup of my delicious ginger ale. So yeah, I mean, these are great. What I like to do with units that are like a raiding bot, I like to call them raiding units, is I will take them and set aside a pool of them and attempt to manipulate the terrain to my advantage. And then I also have my core army on a different location. And so I have like two sets of armies. One is meant to try to get around the front line, and the other is meant to push the front line. So you can use them in that way. Another way you can use raiding bots is, or raiding units, is to try to get a bonus flank damage. So push them past the enemy and then up behind them, so that your front is hitting the front side and your raiding bots are hitting the back side. That's a good way to double your damage. So try to use them in that way as well, and that works pretty well. All right, next we got the res bot. Pretty basic. We've already talked a lot about res bots in the past. We made a video solely based on reclaim and resing things, and how to guarantee that you get the advantage on the battlefield with the reclaim fields, things of that nature. So the grave robber is honestly a great unit. Res bots are probably underrated, even though a lot of people use them. You should use them probably twice as much as you do, and I still struggle with this on a regular basis. They're essentially a build turret that can move around and repair your whole entire army. So don't underestimate a pile of res bots just repairing the front line. I mean, 200 build power is insane, and you can multiply it a lot, and then you have like if you have like 6 of these, now you're up to 100 or 1200 build power. That's a lot of build power backing your army. Obviously, they're quite fragile at 220 health, so basically 1 or 2 shots from a plasma bot will devastate a whole cluster of them. But they're relatively fast at 78 as well. That is comparable to the Grunt, I believe. The Grunt has a slightly faster, if my website will work. Okay, my apologies, guys. I got interrupted there because my internet crashed for some reason. Anyway, we are back again. I was comparing the speed of the grave robber to the Grunt, which it's 81 speed for the Grunt, and the grave robber is 78, so it can't quite outrun a Grunt, which means it definitely can't outrun a pawn. So that's why you got to be careful when you're right at the beginning of the matches, when you're sending out your grave robbers to get metal. Don't let them get gunned down by grunts or pawns. So definitely watch for that. Make sure that you have some reliable assistance for them when they're up towards the very front of the battlefield. The grave robber is a resurrection bot that can turn wrecks into brand new units. Being stealthy means the radar can't spot them, so they work safely as long as your enemies do not have line of sight of them. They are extremely fragile, used with caution. Yeah, definitely, but especially once you get to like mid and late game, these become very worth it for the amount of metal they can collect. So you don't have to be quite as worried about them dying. Even you can send out like 3 or 4 of them to go collect metal, and just, you know, they're gonna die and it will still be worth it because they're only 100 metal a piece. So it's not too shabby. Assign them to repair and resurrect units on the front line to keep your armies reinforced. It also reclaims wrecks, rocks, trees, and optionally an entire area. Reclaim an entire area for extra resources. Alt plus F orders on the default keys will make the Lazarus resurrect, reclaim, and repair friendly units. I have to double check. That's the default keys, so I'm not sure what it is for grid keys. I recommend using the grid pattern because that is pretty good at getting you know, having all of your options there and being really intuitive. So definitely look at switching to the grid pattern if you have the default keys already assigned. So check that out in settings, but I'll have to double check what it is on the grid keys. So anyway, yeah, these things are extremely powerful, and it's really the backbone of your entire army, because as bots you have weaker units than vehicles, and it's really important that you use all of their resources, all of the things they have available to them, to their maximum potential. And next we're moving on to the rocket bot. Now I recently learned something I did not realize with the rocket bot, and that is that walls will block rocket bots fire. So if you're getting harassed a lot by rocket bots, just build a few walls and they essentially become worthless, because walls only cost like what, 4 metal a piece. Let me see if I can find that. Actually, go to construction bot, dragon's teeth. Yeah, it costs 8 metal for 2000 health. So you can just build a bunch of walls and completely negate any damage that a rocket bot can really do. So that's pretty nice. They're just as cheap. Wait, is that right? They're just as cheap as a res bot? I didn't realize that. Anyway, so yeah, very cheap unit. I thought it cost a little bit more. I think Armadas costs a bit more. Not much though. 120 versus 110. Well, okay. You learn something new every day. All right. Health pretty weak. Not really a front. Not really your core heavy unit for T1. Honestly, Cortex bots at the beginning are just mediocre in my opinion. I know that's gonna make some people mad. Some people think they're super amazing. I don't love them, honestly. They just don't have enough variety for me. There's like 3 choices, right? You got your Grunt, you got your Aggravator, and you got your Thug. Those are your only options. So I don't like that limiting style of gameplay. I like having a few more options for different styles of warfare, but you know, that's okay. That they're all very cheap units. I mean, the Grunt's extremely cheap, Aggravator's extremely cheap, Thug, that's pretty cheap as well, 140. And honestly, Thugs are probably your core army, your core strength in the game at 1000 HP for T1. So I would use these probably more than anything else. The one nice thing about the Aggravator though is it has 475 range on its weapon, but it has a very low very slow rate of fire, and its shots are blocked by walls. So just keep that in mind. It's not going to be as effective at like putting out massive amounts of damage per second. It's more of a support unit, and sometimes people build 1,000,000 of them, and that works pretty well, because if you have 1,000,000 of these and they're all launching their missiles, then it's a damage over time, and they have pretty good range. So you know, you can take as much advantage with them as you can. But like I said, their health's not great and their speed is pretty slow, so you can really push up on these and take them out with lighter units pretty easily. And then the construction bot, we're not going to go too deep into construction on this video. There's a lot of other videos I've made going through the building types and like what you use them for. So just realize this is your, you know, your transition into T2 starts with this unit. Where is it? T2 Advanced Bot Lab. There you are. So that's how you get into your advanced bots, is with a T1 construction bot, and then this unlocks a whole bunch more, which we'll be looking at later. So yeah, construction bot, very slow, very low amount of build power, 80. Oh, one more thing I needed to mention. I forgot to mention the Grave Robber has 200 build power, but that build power is limited to resurrection, reclaim, and repair. So it cannot assist in building buildings. And that's very important to remember, because you might, you know, if you're brand new to the game, you might build like, oh, well, this is so good at building stuff, I'm gonna build 1,000,000 of them, and then have them at your base trying to build stuff, and then realize, oh wait, they They can't build my buildings, and they're not helping at all. And Jaws said that these are so great. Well, they're good on the front line. They're good at reclaiming things. So not the same as a construction bot, which only has 80 build power, but actually can build buildings, right? So it's a little bit different. Construction bot can build basic Tech 1 structures and is the cheapest construction unit. Use multiple on a single structure to increase your build power. It is also quite slow, so try to escort a few grunts when expanding. Each constructor also increases the player's energy storage capacity by 50 for both. Okay, I was checking on that. For some reason I thought the energy storage was by 20, but I think they actually produce 20 energy. Each construction unit produces 20 extra energy when you build them, so that can be a nice little bonus over time, but not very significant. All right, now we got the amphibious thrasher, the anti-air amphibious bot. Alrighty, these things are honestly, all the air units that you can build in this game are very, very strong. Air is one of the weakest things in the game. Usually it's like a couple missiles out of this thing and you're gonna knock down T1 air no problem. So yeah, if you end up having to counter air, oftentimes it'll be like a surprise thing where you don't realize that the enemy was going air, and so you have to like jump on anti-air really quick. Just pump out some thrashers. Just go to your T1 bot factory, press alt, and then pump out some thrashers. They'll come out pretty quick because they have a pretty low build time, 19 seconds, and then you can just, you know, low cost, low build time, you can just pump these out before the planes even get to you, and they'll start gunning down those planes that are flying towards you. So I find that sometimes nicer than even getting out an anti-air missile. Let's check out that actually. Anti-air missile, here we go. A thistle does 86 damage and is a little bit cheaper, but also not mobile. So there is that, but I think that this is, yeah, I mean 80, it has a higher damage per missile. Does it cover as wide of an area though? That's my other question. 76 range versus 76 or 760. Yeah, that's what I meant. 760 versus 760. So yeah, they're comparable. I mean, never mind. Go for some thistles. That'd be better. I just usually spam these out because then I can have those units move to the front and also protect the front as well. And so, you know, it's up to you. It's up to you. I like to pop out actual units, but they are cheaper to pop out thistles if you're wanting to go for the more efficient method of handling air at your base. Thug. This is, as we stated earlier, the core of your front line. This is your tank at 1,000 health, and it does 60 damage per second with plasma shots. The one factor about the Thug that's pretty nice though is the fact that it has 380 range versus the mace has the exact same range. For some reason I thought the Thug could outrange the mace. I guess that was a misunderstanding on my part. But anyway, 380 range. I'm pretty sure it outranges a tank. Let me see. A brute. Here we are. 350 range. So yeah, that's what it can outrange. It can outrange Armada and Cortex's vehicles. So if you micro them very carefully, you can get a bit of an advantage with the thugs through range. So that's something you're going to want to just try to poke in and out of gunfire and like hammer them with the plasma shells, retreat, and then repair, and then just do that over and over again. And that can be pretty effective and annoying, mind you, very annoying. So yeah, Thug definitely your frontline unit that you're gonna want to build the most of. And yeah, they have decent damage per second. It's not quite as much as a pawn, but it has the health to make up for that. And the range. The Thug is a light plasma bot that deals a sizable damage for its relatively low cost to build, and that is true. 140 versus a Grunt, which is 36, versus a pawn, which is 48. So So the pawn is basically worth 3 thugs, I think. So if you can kill a thug with a pawn, you've gotten 3 times your value. So yeah, and that's actually pretty easy to do because a thug by itself is kind of weak because it's kind of hard to target with the plasma, whereas a pawn can kind of micro back and forth and make it so that the thug can't really target. So yeah, that's why you want like a big group of thugs, because they can easily handle spam that way. Combine with resurrection bots to keep them healthy while pushing the enemy's front line. Yep, it is a very slow, fairly slow, so watch out for fast enemy units and long range defenses. It has more range when shooting from higher ground, and that works with basically every unit that you build on higher ground. You'll get a slight range bonus, which can be pretty nice because then you can outrange things that you normally wouldn't be able to outrange. So try to take advantage of that when you get the chance. Cortex Commander, you know, it's basically there's not really any difference between the Armada and Cortex Commander that I have seen. I believe they're basically a replica. Which actually, I mean, they might want to think about changing that in the future. Like maybe giving Cortex Commander a slightly bigger laser and maybe a little bit tankier, whereas Armada Commander could be maybe a little bit weaker and a little bit faster. And I mean, I don't know. It could be something they could look into, you know? But one thing we were looking at, which I don't know, we'll probably talk about a little bit, is we were looking at the Decoy Commanders last night on stream on Twitch. So if you wanted to check out that stream, it's available. We had some fun doing some sneaky reclaim or capturing with some Decoy Commanders. Anyway, the Cortex Commander is the most versatile and important unit in the army. It is what you'll start with in your initial base to build your first unit factory. Use it to build and defend your front line when you expand. It can produce both metal and energy. It's amphibious, equipped with a laser and powerful disintegrator gun or D-gun, able to kill every unit in the game as represented by this picture. So it's very, very effective. Definitely use that D-gun to its max potential. A lot of newer players don't realize how valuable the D-gun is. When you're going up against a lot of heavy units, you need to use the D-gun to wipe them out. And they can also, you know, your commander can cloak. And then when he's cloaked, he's invisible. You can wait for them to push up on you and then D-gun them to pieces. And that's your best way of defending a heavy push. And it can build T1 structures, some T1 structures. It can't build all of them. The construction bot is able to build much more T1 than the commander is. So now we got the Bedbug. These things, yeah, both the Tumbleweed and Bedbug are pretty overpowered. 2,000 damage on its explosion for 70 metal, and it has, I mean, not the most health, but not the least health either. These things can really infest by this concept of bedbugs. Literally infest the oceans, everything. You can dumpster anything with these things. I mean, even on land, they're amphibious and land units, and so you can just like go all over the map and explode everything. In fact, I think Brightworks disables these units because of how strong they are. If you combine them with a bit of a heavier tank army and then you just roll them through and try to destroy your enemy units, you can usually do quite significant damage. 81 speed is pretty significant. So yeah, Bedbug is a crawling bomb designed for one purpose: to go kamikaze on the enemy units and structures. Very deadly versus grouped up units such as tanks. When used in a swarm, spread them out to avoid chain reactions. Crawling bombs have 140 AoE, normally 216 AoE, along with increased damage if you self-destruct it. Thanks to their amphibious attributes, they're also great at attacking and regaining sea territory. And that's something we probably don't realize, is how powerful these units are. Especially on a land to air or land to sea battle, you should be able to do some decent damage with them. So, and that's something I could have done last night that I didn't even think of. So I need to remember that these exist. They're pretty powerful. Deceiver. This is a radar jamming bot. Radar jamming just means that when a radar unit has not a visual, but like a radar signature, it will block the radar signature. So these are very powerful. I did a video yesterday going over the support units and support buildings that a lot of people don't know about. So if you want to check that out, it is there on my YouTube page. The Deceiver is a mobile radar jamming bot that keeps units within its jamming range from appearing on the minimap. It is used with cloakable units to make them totally invisible and undetectable. It is best used to mount a surprise attack and hide your units or structures from long-range weapons. Beware, units can be detected if the enemy has an intrusion countermeasure system, which we talked about that yesterday. So check that out. Radar bot has a very extended radar range. I think it's very comparable to the advanced radar. Let me check. Advanced radar. Oh no, the advanced radar has 1,300 radar range more than the radar bot, the Augur. Very cheap unit, only 100 metal, so comparable to a T1 bot, but it has so much more value. The line of sight range is really valuable on these bots. They have 900 line of sight, so try to use that line of sight to your advantage. That really helps get accurate shots off for your artillery and snipers and Sheldons and basically any laser weapon, anything. Having that line of sight is just a huge advantage. The one thing with both the radar bot and the radar jamming bot is they are very slow. They're a speed of 45, so it's quite difficult to keep them either alive when they're being pushed or up next to your units as they are pushing forward. So you have to be sure that you keep them all kind of grouped up. The Augur is a mobile radar bot that gives you intel on enemy units within its range. Keep it behind your army so it doesn't get taken out. One thing that I've noticed is pretty nice for that is having them on a guard command, because that puts them like a couple feet behind whatever they're being used with. So what I'll usually do is I'll take a Mammoth, which are pretty slow. We'll get to them eventually, but I'll take a Mammoth and I'll put my Augur up guarding the Mammoth so that it's a bit further behind it, and it's also providing that extra line of sight and range so the Mammoth can be at its full potential. So very, very powerful when you do that. It doesn't have any weapons and has rather low health, but having intel on your enemy's whereabouts is crucial. Mobile intel is even better. Alright, the Spectre, which they recently did an update on a bunch of these units in-game, what do you call them, pictures, I guess? I'm sure that's not the technical name, but so check those out. They look pretty cool. I like most of them. Some of them not as big of a fan of, but you know, that's alright. A lot of people put a lot of work into it, and so I'm not going to complain. Pretty cheap unit, and these are honestly, both the Ghost and the Spectre is just very, very strong. They have a EMP discharge, which is super cool. So what you can do is you can push these into the enemy front line and EMP certain units that are very pivotal, something that has a lot of firepower or has a lot of vision, or even something like an anti-nuke. You could EMP it with one of these invisible bots and then launch a nuke, and it'll completely take your enemies aback. They'll be very confused and wonder what on earth happened to them, as a nuke is going into their base and destroying them, wondering who didn't build the anti-nuke when it was a cloaked bot that did an EMP blast on it, disabling it. So the Spectre is a stealthy and cloakable spy bot that's totally invisible to your enemies. Self-destruct it near the enemy citadel to disable it. Yep, that's what they're talking about here with the discharged EMP. It is also good to have nearby units, or to have nearby enemy units, so your artillery has a clear target location. However, beware it can be detected if the enemy has a tracer within range. Yeah, so we talked about the tracer, and we talked about the pinpointer yesterday, so we're not going to go into details with that, but it essentially will, yeah, detect if you have any stealth units, or if the enemy has any stealth units. You'll detect that, so beware of those. They can be pretty strong, and honestly every team should have a couple of those lined up across their front. But yeah, very powerful unit. Try to implement these into your gameplay and you will be surprised at what you were missing out on. The Fiend, everyone's favorite unit. In fact, I believe on the bar Reddit page, someone posted a drawing of their version of the Fiend. It was quite hilarious, quite fun. I enjoyed it. I thought for sure it was probably something that a kid did during school, though. It looked like that was about the... I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with that, but Fiends are pretty awesome. They have this cool looking shield thing, and it's like a flamethrower backpack deal here. Very powerful unit. 200 metal cost, 3000 energy. Usually the energy cost isn't too significant for Cortex, a little bit more significant for Armada in my opinion, but the speed on these are incredible at 83 speed, DPS 240, and that's an area of effect, so it launches a flame out of it that covers a massive area, so it's very effective at killing groups of units, and far better than the Armada Sprinter, which is the counterpart. These things are incredible, so definitely incorporate these into your army. They can devastate the enemy if they get into the economy. The Fiend is a fast and deadly raider bot equipped with a short-range flamethrower optimized to quickly kill weak or slow units and demolish bases. If these get into the base, your base is no more. It is only moments of time that you have left. Moderately durable for a raid, they are slightly higher valued to still highly vulnerable, to gunships and heavier defenses. Combine Fiends with Deceivers to hide them from radar until ready to strike. That would be more of like a 1v1 type of gameplay there, I think, because in an 8v8 your front lines are so settled at this point in the game that it's going to be a bit harder to do a surprise attack like that. But on a 1v1 on a bigger map, maybe it would work. Fiends can self-destruct in 1 second. So these guys, usually buildings take like 1 to 5 seconds. Things that have bigger explosions can take 1 second, and Fiends are one of those things. They have a massive explosion when they do their self-destruct. But the timing can be difficult because you have to make sure that you're not selecting all of your Fiends in your whole entire army, but you're selecting only the ones that are up close next to your enemy to self-destruct them. But yeah, they're basically little bombs that you can blow up as well. So the self-destruct in 1 second deals the most, default for most units is 5 seconds. Yeah, there you go, which deals 1100 damage in 100 radius. So it's pretty big explosion. Push Fiends into the center of enemy forces and detonate them for massive damage. The only trouble is usually getting them there because they are pretty weak at 1000 health, and T2 that's not enough to hold up to too much gunfire. So, but I've gotten a few good Fiend bombs off, and they're pretty great in that way. Definitely a good way to multiply their damage. Twitcher, these are the combat engineer building assistant bot. They have a really high speed. That's one thing really nice about the Twitcher, is they can outrun basically everything. I think Armada's speed is a little lower. Yep, which is crazy because the Butler is the opposite faction's version, and it's just so much weaker. You have the build power of 140. versus the Twitcher has 125. So it has a little bit higher build power, but the speed is lower at 70 versus 80 or 90. And then the metal cost, I think, is a little bit, oh, it's the same. But then look at the build options for the Butler. The Butler can build solar collectors, wind turbines, metal extractors, energy converters, and a couple like vision things. Versus the Twitcher, which has Fiends and Commandos and Thrashers and Ducks and construction ships and pressures, all sorts of things, just massive amounts of things. The big thing that I like for having the Twitcher is the fact that it can build a construction turret, because that means it can help increase your build power at your base very easily. So that's one thing I wish Armada had, and I feel like the Butler is pretty lacking in. But it can be nice for mobile build power still, on your front line setting up defenses. It's just not nearly as versatile as the Twitcher. Twitcher is a handy construction unit that can run fairly quickly and provide a building power wherever you need it. Useful for producing Fiends on the move. Its purpose is to have a source of mobile build power that can quickly move to whatever area you need. It is also used to build mines. Oh, I didn't even realize that. Medium mines, yep, okay. For securing your flanks and areas of high tactical importance. Which I think mines need to be used a little bit more in the game than they are. I think sometimes people don't realize how valuable they really can be. Pardon me as I drink another sip of delicious juice or ginger ale. But yeah, look into using mines a little bit more in your gameplay, just to cause a little bit of harassment to the enemy, because mines are extremely cheap. Let's look at this, only 16 metal, and the main cost is in energy upkeep, which at a certain point in the game, energy upkeep isn't really that big of a deal. So look into it. They're your friends. Alright, the amphibious bot, the duck. These guys are a bit more tanky, I think, than the platypus, if I remember correctly. 200 or 2,300 versus 1,100. Yep, that is correct. Okay, the duck is used mostly for like an unexpected amphibious assault. Kind of, that's basically what all amphibious units are used for. 9 times out of 10 is just the unexpected surprise pop up in a location that you don't normally have defenses. And so you'll see them more on like water maps. For that, they do have a decent speed of 50. Not like incredible. I think the platypus has a bit more. Yeah, 90. So these things are really fast. So they can get across the map and really harass quite quickly. So if you aren't expecting a platypus somewhere and it ends up in your economy, you're really messed up, because it's 150 damage and it can quickly decimate your fusion reactors, your advanced fusion, and your energy converters, and just dumpster your whole base. So be very careful on sea maps that you don't murder yourself with amphibious assaults. So the duck is an amphibious bot equipped with a short-range laser and a light torpedo launcher, useful for raiding unexpected naval structures and sneaking into enemy territories from the sea. It is also a good way to allocate a quick-moving amphibious torpedo unit to aid your naval units. So it does have a torpedo launcher as well. That's always something I don't really remember about it, but I'm pretty sure it's not quite as good as a normal sub on the naval side, if I remember correctly. I remember killing these pretty easily as the sea player, so I don't know if it's quite as cost effective, but it can be a good way to aid in the naval war. Sheldons, these are very strong units. 850 range and easily outranged by the sniper. I don't think that Cortex has a counterpart to the sniper. Let's check that. Sniper bot. Yeah, this is a Armada specific unit. And it can counter the Sheldon pretty easily, because the Sheldon doesn't quite have that range. But these are very effective at 66 damage per second. but that long range makes them very good at dealing with defenses, dealing with tanks, dealing with infantry, whatever it may be. These things will basically decimate anything they come in contact with. So very good unit, better than the Hound in my opinion. The Hound costs about, they actually cost less. I'm surprised of that. It always feels like the Hound costs more, but it does cost less. But the range is a bit lower here. You see 650 range versus this, which has 850 range, so it's 200 range difference, and that is a significant difference. You always want to pair these with the radar bot and radar jammer though, because they have almost no line of sight. It's 300, which is less than a grunt, and so they're worthless on their own. You have to have them paired up with other units to make them valuable. But they do have a very long range. Use that to their advantage, and they can dumpster anything really except for sniper bots with that range advantage. The Sheldon is a fast mobile artillery bot that can outrange most defenses, useful for dealing damage to enemy units while staying out of their weapons range. It needs a good line of sight to hit targets, even though some shots will miss due to long range and relatively slow projectile speed. The Sheldon is good at dismantling enemy defense lines, as it slowly but steadily does damage from a relatively safe distance. Yes, very powerful. I haven't built these as much lately because I've been just loving other units so much, because Cortex just has so many options in the later game, and I love all of them. So, but yeah, I need to use my Sheldons again. I know they're a great unit. Alright, advanced construction bot. This is where you get all your better economy, all your better defenses. The bulwark, which is a very powerful unit for taking out heavy pushes, and yeah, that's your base economy right there for Cortex. We're not going to go over that too much because, you know, this is an economy video. This is you guys want the meat. You guys don't want the actual economy stuff. That's boring. That you guys already know all about that. We're trying to find new stuff, new nuggets. All right, the Scuttle. Now, I don't know. This is a crawling bomb. So the Bedbug and the Scuttle. Is the Scuttle a T2 and the Bedbug is a T2? Wait, what's the difference then? Okay. It's cloakable. It does 3,000 damage. The Scuttle is a crawling bomb designed for one purpose: to go kamikaze on enemy units. When used in a swarm, spread them out to avoid chain reactions. It has a large area of effect when it explodes, even bigger when you self-destruct it. You can regain the sea. Skull's main advantage over the Bedbug is its ability to cloak. It costs 540 metal versus 69 metal, so it's much more expensive, but it can cloak, which is an insane superpower. So you could probably use these on your front line, cloak a bunch of them, push into their defenses, and before they know it, explode everything they have with scuttles, because that's massive damage, and they can cloak. That's pretty insane. I kind of want to use these, test them out a bit, because I've never used these before. I'm guessing they're a little bit overpowered. The Juno can disable enemy radar before sneaking into cloak, or sneaking in the Scuttle. Yeah, so check these out, see if you like them. I'm gonna test them, see if I like them. They look pretty interesting. They look like they'd be pretty fun to use. Sumo. I have mixed feelings about the Sumo. Just solely based on how slow it is at 38 speed, and based on its weapon range at 275. It's a very weak unit in my opinion. The only thing I really pump these out, the only reason why I pump these out is that T1 units are pushing on my base and I need something fast. That's when I use the Sumo. It just doesn't quite have the punch required. It can get outranged so easily, and it's so slow. So like those are two of the worst things, you know, being slow and outranged, so that they can continue to outrange you forever. It's just not an ideal situation. They do have a lot of health though, and they're not the most expensive unit, but in a like really tough situation, I'd rather just build some Fiends, because Fiends are faster and they cost less, and they do 240 DPS versus 340 DPS. But I'm more likely to get up to my enemy and kill them with a Fiend than I am with the Sumo. So I think there might need to be, the Sumo might need to see some rework to make it a little bit more usable. Because right now I just feel there's no need. There's not a huge reason to build them. Anyway, the Sumo is a heavy armored laser bot that deals great damage, great amounts of damage in close combat. It is used to absorb incoming fire while your long range units take out the enemy units. Okay, I can see that, you know, if you want to use them for Sheldons and protect them, I could see that. It's just like, man, go for the big boy. Go for the Mammoth, because it can actually fight back. I mean, I don't know. If some people like them, post in the comments and tell me why you like the Sumo. I don't like it. I just don't like it. Okay, used to absorb incoming fire from your long-range units. It takes a lot. It's a lot stronger than the welder. It also costs more. When you have enough of them, they can become quite an unstoppable force if they don't die before they get to the front. Arbiter. And this one's not animated yet. But the Arbiter, probably underused in my opinion. It's very, very powerful. It has a very massive range of 1,200, and that's where I think this thing shines. Is it can rain down fire from extremely far away. I like to put Arbiters and Mammoths in combination together. Arbiters picking off specific targets, Mammoths holding the front, maintaining the frontline damage there as well, and a very tanky unit. So yeah, Arbiters I think are a bit underused because I don't see them very often in gameplay. The Arbiter is a very long range heavy rocket bot that fires its missiles straight up to hit the enemy units at a high angle. Use them to destroy enemy defenses from far away and to break their front lines. It doesn't have much health, but it can easily target structures and units behind walls or cliffs. So yeah, what I would do is queue up an attack order on some high value targets in the back line and then push them up, and it will launch its rockets at those high value targets versus the spam and like grunts and pawns and all that garbage. So very, very valuable unit. Termite. These are a bit more powerful than the Recluse in my opinion. They seem a bit more tanky and have a bit higher damage. So these are multi-terrain, able to go over mountains and valleys and hills and crests. And honestly, probably not the best value for the metal cost unless you're using them for that purpose to like gain an advantage through the terrain. They have a little bit of a short range at 340. I think the Recluse has a bit more, yeah, 600 range. So if you are going up against a Recluse, you want to push them and limit that range advantage that they have. DPS is 330, so that's very nice, very handy. And honestly, I believe these are a direct counter to the Armada Recluse. In my opinion, I think they do very, very well against them. I think they're a little bit faster. 48 versus, no, the Recluse is faster. Okay, maybe I just I've tried going with Recluses up against the Termite and I got dumpstered. Maybe I just played it wrong. I must have played it wrong. Didn't see it coming. So yeah, try to get up and close in the face of a Recluse, and you'll probably dumpster it, because you have a little bit more health and a little bit more damage than them. You just have a lighter weapon range. The Termite is an all-terrain spider bot equipped with 2 laser beams, evade enemy defenses by traversing where other units cannot go. It has a good amount of armor and can climb even the steepest cliffs, so that'd be good for like all that glitters in the canyon. You can use some termites to come up over the top and rain down gunfire on your enemies in unsuspected positions. And anti-air amphibious, the Manticore, the anti-air amphibious bot, tech level 2. It's, you know, there's not much to say about the anti-air. Build them if you see air. They're very good. They're very effective. You can wipe out large groups of air with these. And in a pinch, when you're going up against bombers and gunships coming towards your base, pop some of these out and you'll be fine. You know, they have really good weapon range. They're mobile and you can do massive amounts of air damage with them. Decoy Commander. Try to use the capture ability and cloakable, and people will think that they are your real commander when they're not. So you can go up into someone's base cloaked, capture one of their buildings and self-destruct it. That's pretty awesome. Not very many people try that, but if you can pull it off, you'll be the hero. So use that capture ability, and the fact that you can reclaim stuff too as well is pretty powerful, and it has just as much build power as a normal commander. So yeah, look into the decoy commanders. I think they're a little bit underused and they're not that expensive. Decoy Commander, yeah, it's only 700. I felt like it was a little bit cheaper. I mean, yeah, okay, 700. So I mean, that's a little bit costly, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. So yeah, look at that. Commando. I have not experimented with the Commando yet. I should look into it. Commando is a versatile and amphibious paratrooper bot which needs proficient control skills to be successful. That's probably why I haven't used it, because I don't know if I can call myself proficient in my controlling skills. It will drop out of a transport when it gets destroyed, so it does not die instantly. Its cannon fires rapidly with splash damage, and it regenerates its own health faster than most units, but it primarily excels at mine laying, saboteur, and spy. It's not cloakable. Instant concern there. It doesn't have cloak. Radar jamming, so that could be maybe good, but line of sight issues are definitely there. Use mines and its weapon to weaken buildings and then reclaim them for their full metal value. If you can get them back there, yeah. I have a feeling that if you try doing a commando play on an 8v8, it's not going to go well for you. Excuse me. My goodness. So I need to look into this unit. I need to give it a fair shake because I really haven't. The Commando is the only unit besides the Phantasm that can radar jam from the water. Okay. Immune to Juno missiles, it can keep your unit's instructions hidden while providing radar itself. Its radar range isn't that significant though. 900, so I mean that's all right, but it's not like overpowered in any way. It does have build power though too, so you could look into putting these on your front line maybe, and it's a radar jammer and radar bot kind of combined with the ability to repair all of your units, so that could be handy actually for like an artillery group or something. Keep them all healthy. Move in formation order should be used so that your forces all move at the same speed. It can build radar jammers. It can build transports. Oh, that's interesting actually. So that is one thing that's pretty cool. Dragon's Maw, medium mines. These are all, you know, it could be used in more ways than it probably is. I've really never seen these used on the battlefield, and maybe we should look into that a little bit more. And next we got the Mammoth. My favorite unit in the game is the Mammoth. Heavily armored assault bot at 15,000 health. Insane. A range of 650, outranged slightly by a Sheldon, but the Sheldon does such a measly damage, just barely scratching the paint to a Mammoth. It doesn't even matter. The cost seems high, but it is worth it for that range, and the DPS on it is intense. This is a T1.5, or no, T2.5, essentially a T3 unit. It can take out Razorbacks with ease. It can take out demons with ease. It can take out Shiva with ease. The only thing it will struggle with is the heavier ones. These guys are buff. I think underused because they're pretty slow. They're a speed of 23. But when they're coming and you have a line of them coming, boy, it's a bad feeling. How you gonna take them? They're pretty tough. The Mammoth is a heavily armored assault bot that's equipped with 2 heavy laser beams. Use it to absorb incoming fire while your long-range units take out the enemy units. You don't even need long-range units with these because they have a decent range themselves. Although having a little bit extra long range can be helpful because then you got, you know, the backup as well. It has the most health among all the T2 units and is the best choice for tanking enemy fire. When you have enough of them, they become quite an unstoppable force, which is really the goal, in my opinion. Get a bunch of these out and you are an unstoppable force. They can fire at land, they can fire at air, they can fire at sea, they can fire everything. They can take the hits, take out the turrets, take out everything. They're very powerful. The one negative part is their speed, but that's a worthy trade-off in my opinion. Worthy trade-off. Anyway, guys, that's all we're gonna go over. We're not gonna go over the T3 because you should be pretty familiar with those. Maybe we'll do a T3 video going over all the T3 in both Armada and Cortex factions. But that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked it and enjoyed it, definitely push like on the video. That really helps. And if you aren't subscribed, I'd be very surprised because you watched through this entire thing. And you should be subscribed if you did, because that means you really value my content. Anyway, guys, I will see you on the battlefield.